Hi, intrepid viewers, coming to you from Australia. And I was up most of the night watching the hearings and tennis in dribs and drabs, so I haven't slept. So if my eyes look like two burnt holes in a blanket, that'd be why. So what a roller coaster. And young, what's her name, Cassidy Hutchinson, Whoosh, I'm going to read on her first and then we'll chat on about other developments. Right. So Cassidy Hutchinson, very brave young woman. Of course, GOP, well, dare I say, criminal conspirators, entertainment only, they're going to dismiss it as hearsay. However, it seems that she was there in the room on a lot of these occasions. And what about the revelations of the Yeti? Just showing the barbarian that he is. And really, if nothing else comes of all this, he should be charged for breaking White House china. Oh, look, so much to look at. So Cassidy Hutchinson, bless her, her testimony. I want to look at the impact of her testimony. Impact of her testimony. Let's do this. Straight off the... Oh, I'm pleased to see the Eight of Wands. Yeah, but. Okay. All right. Now, this would suggest to me it's going to translate into a lot of spin-offs, possibly as many as 8 separate charges, or 8 people that are going to be directly implicated from her testimony. None of these would be mystery players, right? It's just more nails in the collective coffin. So action, Wanza, action. I'm liking this. Underneath the theft of the election, or the big lie about the theft of the election, underlies everything in terms of what the DOJ ultimately has to prove. That he knew it was a lie. So important. Now, this committee has done Garland's work for him, so let's hope he's got his skates on. But that's what's underpinning it and her testimony. There was a degree, more than a degree, personal courage involved here, because the emperor, i.e. the Yeti, has long arms. And I don't know, I should ask if she has to go into witness protection, but in any event, advanced security. The card that comes up over and over, crossroads of American history. Literally. So you have what, a third of the population who are suffering under a mass delusion, probably 40% of the population, including you, blessed, intrepid viewers, who are suffering with genuine trauma. And then you've got that other wafty 25% who choose to live most of their lives under a rock and look probably underground, but who need to be woken up. A strategy will come forward out of her testimony. I would say a very clear strategy of how they're going to take this forward, because the fuss that was made about her testifying suggested either she was at risk of witness intimidation or worse, and it's provided some more nitty-gritty other than just hearsay. So it is going to have an impact. I'm just going to do a couple of clarifiers on the strategy that may emerge from this, or what light can be thrown on this. Oh, okay, so we have, this is interesting. I love these cards. the enemy will be disgraced. Now, we know these people have no moral fibre, no spine, no flaw, but this is suggesting to me that there may finally be an element of disgrace, and that's been missing, this idea of actual shame. This has been the missing ingredient, I think, for a lot of them. For the people like Lindsey Graham, who said in 2016, if we go ahead with this guy as a candidate, we deserve everything we get and other things. You know, the guy is a complete imbecile. And then went on his knees for the next 4 years. Some element of disgrace, interesting emotion, interesting, because that has been sorely lacking. Thank you, little cards. All right, so in other quite mysterious developments, remember there were all those subpoenas and a blitz of raids last week with Eastman and the others. And I guess I certainly just assumed the FBI carried out those raids. But I saw on Ari Melba or somewhere, it wasn't the FBI. It was the Inspector General's office. What does that mean? And let me tell you, Ari Melba was only guessing too, but he did think it was weird. So what is the story and why the Inspector General's staff and security carried out these raids? And what does the Inspector General do? I just had a look before I came online. They investigate fraud in a big way. So this would suggest the money. I'm using the Toth deck for this particular question. Well, you would, wouldn't you, really? Okay. Now, why the IG? Oh. This is weird. Weird. Interesting. Okay. So in the center, the death card. Why the death card in relation to this topic? Well, you have the threatened assassination of American democracy, where you're in this unique situation of having a huge percentage of the Conservative Party of America lined up to destroy democracy. So they're very worried about this. Now, oh, I just heard they didn't trust the FBI. Oh, well, that would explain some of these cards too. Okay, now, out of 5 cards, 4 are major arcana. Big. This is big in itself. Here's the hangman, right? So, hanging in this case from the ankh. So, with the hangman, things aren't quick as a rule, but we're almost in a time warp with this. Some things seem to take forever and other things happen in a nanosecond, and it's time is very elastic in this context. But nonetheless, this has been in the works for a while. Well, I'm pleased a semblance of justice has arrived here. I think this was a directive from Merrick Garland to the Inspector Generals. And given that they explore money, they are following the money in the tradition. So I think the angle of those arrests last week and stuff is about funding an insurrection. Okay, and as we know, the funding of is really important. And let's hope Ginny Thomas is caught by her fingernails in the till. But this is justice around money. On top, we have the love card, which I think is love of country, because you've got this through line through the middle of this reading. Love, death, and the hangman. So the through line is their motivation. And I would go as far as to say, hopefully, Merrick Garland's motivation is genuine love of the country, which has not been prioritised for some time. Okay, and the outcome card, the Hermit. So this is why they were playing their cards close to their chest and sadly, devastatingly, not being able to trust, not the whole FBI, I'm sure, but enough of the FBI to carry out this stuff. So it was an underground endeavour, right? And the Hermit sheds light. So that could be a stroke of genius on Garland's part, because you'd have to hope. We still have to hope, although as Johnny on Tarot's Apprentice says, hope is not a strategy. And he has a point, which brings me to other issues today. Beloved viewers. Okay, I know you're exhausted and brutalized. I do get it. I'm brutalized secondhand, right? But as Elizabeth Warren said during the week, the Supreme Court does not have the last word on Roe versus Wade. You do. And I think that was a very good way of putting it. So I really, really beg you to not think, oh, it's too far gone. No, 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 no. I think most of you are motivated, highly motivated to vote. But to maximise your vote, get someone else. People need help, actually, because it's such a tragically ill-equipped democracy in the best of times. I know America thinks it invented it, but no, and hasn't actually done a marvellous job of it. But people need help. And so what you can do is find somebody in your family or your community or your building. Follow up the fine print in your area, or if it's a family member in another state. This election is going to be very prone to disruption. So it's really important to know the fine print. Can that person do an absentee vote? When is the date it has to be in? Can you help them get it to where it needs to be manually delivered, perhaps? Make sure their vote is signed and dated. This sort of minutiae can make a difference. And so really, really, really. Now, in other news, will they subpoena Pence at some point? Will they subpoena Pence? Don't you love him? He's just such a wimp. And he's been cowering under the coattails of the Yeti for 4 years. And now this judgment came out with SCOTUS. It's, yeah, anti-abortion everywhere. Yeah. It's Sharia law, 15 years in jail. It's absolutely gobsmacking. We'll do Pence, and then we'll do a reaction to the SCOTUS stuff, a bit of an update. Pence, will he be subpoenaed? Oh, sorry. My sort of gut feeling politically was, nah, they're not going to go there. However, these cards are saying something different. So the Prince of Wands and the Chariot, see, they're both cards of high movement, right? Which means things going forward. I think possibly after her testimony, because we all know he has the animation of a houseplant and, you know, the charisma of wallpaper. So he flew under the radar in these hearings so far, but these are suggesting big movement. There is also this love card, and you might tell me what it means because I don't know. It's an outlier. I have no clue. But then we come to the very impulsive and determined knight. So I'm going to say yes. And if you'd asked me yesterday, no. Speaking of yesterday, Dave Johnson from Moonride, we've spent, because we're in our own time zone, we spent a couple of days, who was the mystery witness? You know, and I was saying, oh, maybe it's this one, maybe it's that one. And Dave said, Mark Meadows. And so I went to bed excited because I thought he's right. It's going to be Meadows. No, pity, because he's another gutless wonder, as we say in Australia. Remember that expression, gutless wonder, because the GOP is stacked with them. But it was his assistant. So kudos to Dave. I think that's close enough to deserve a credit point. Okay. Now, I've already forgotten what I was going to read on, because if I don't write things down, it escapes me entirely. Oh yes, things that have been done to counter these dreadful medieval laws. And AOC came out with the idea of clinics being on federal land. I don't think it's going to fly, but also corporate pushback, including Disney and a couple of other big companies who have said they will pay for female employees who have to go interstate. Now, this is unprecedented, bless them. Never thought I'd be kowtowing to Disney, but there you go. So let's have a look. Let's have a look at the pushback to this. And that's all the sorts of pushback: protests, voting, clinics on federal land. Let's have a look at the pushback on this, because you can be darn sure they're coming after everything, every civilizing factor in the last 100 years gone. I wouldn't put it past them to try and take the vote off women entirely. You know? And yes, I have seen The Family. Every day I get told to watch the series on The Family, which I did, if you haven't seen it, on Netflix. So let's have a look here. Pushback. The death card again in the center. It's perfectly apparent without even any other cards. This is the hour. This is the hour. People have to step up. We have for too long in all our countries, we just sort of take the political system as something you whinge and whine about. We don't take it seriously. Most people are spectacularly ill-informed, and it just grinds on. This is about the death of the Republic if this doesn't get sorted out very snappily. I'm preaching to the choir, I know, but it's turning up. Pushback. Oh, yuck. In fact, I would say these cards haven't so much answered what is the pushback. I'll actually ask that again maybe, but this is what's behind it. Because to be honest with you, I don't understand what's behind it. Certainly it doesn't make economic sense. Women who are chained barefoot and pregnant with their 12th child and can't contribute to the economy, the poorest countries in the world have the worst laws around women's reproduction. The countries that do best in the world have the best conditions around women's reproduction, because that also benefits men. So, but we're dealing with the Taliban, so, you know, there's no way around it. Okay, we got the death card. Like I say, this is them feeling isolated and neglect. This is what that narrative is. Oh, you poor forgotten people, you know, who only read the Old Testament. You know, there's endless conflict ahead, of course. What will be revealed, hopefully, is the associations with dark money, but may not be revealed soon. Their real agenda, the ultimate real agenda, is out there. You know, what is their real agenda? When will they be happy? I mean, thank God the Handmaid's Tale was made, because it's given us a shorthand to actually explain what a day in the life of living in Gilead is, you know, like absolutely horrifying. Okay, so, oh, we've got the filmmaker. Now, this is the film team who was given all that access at this critical time in history inside the White House and with the Trump family, and they can't help themselves. You know, it's like Trump embracing every author who wants to interview him, even though he knows that the last 37 books have been disastrous. No, it doesn't matter. It's all about me. Apparently it was Jared who organised for this film crew. So I want to know about this, what they've got on footage, and in the bigger picture, will it translate into anything? Because as we all know, pictures and audio are hugely important. And so the filmmaker's been subpoenaed. He was invited by Jared. Not invited so much, but agreed to by Jared. Have to wonder about Jared's long-term plan, wouldn't you? Okay. What's in this film footage? Oh my God. All right, but there's so many agendas swirling around here. It's hard to get a bit of a fix on this. For those of you learning tarot, the Ace of Pentacles, normally a good news card, a bit of a windfall with money coming your way, la, la, la. When it's not positively aspected, fool's gold. Fool's gold. So I think it's using a metaphor or whatever it is. What they thought they were getting is not what they are getting with this documentary. The truth will come out, and see it piercing the crown of the Royal Yeti. I do love that. Page of Swords. Funnily enough, I'm getting an Ivanka sort of vibe here. What's Ivanka got to do with this? It might be something she said because if Jared was instrumental in getting this to happen, they had to have a plan. She is going, there's something that she says, I will say on camera, that actually we thought that other testimony was a pushback at Daddy. This is another dimension. Something else that she says or does is going to be really quite interesting. We've got the Knight of Wands here, which is the knight charging forth with purpose, determination, all of that, but the horse is being reined in. So I think this is the editing or the release of this imagery, because now all the film has been taken off to legal land. This could be the reining in of the horse until we have that series of revelations. Out comes strength, and I hope that means that the country has the strength. You guys who are exhausted, the strength to deal with yet more revelations, but also collectively as a nation to really, really be prepared to fight. Be prepared to fight, to have the inner fortitude to fight this. Between now and November is a time for gearing up, not down. Take breaks, really look after yourself. If you're anywhere near nature, even a park or something like that, as often as you can, just go and have a quiet 20 minutes in a park. If you have access to a river or a lake or the ocean, please make use of it. You've got to stay in prime condition between now and November. Okay. Now, okay. AOC is also calling for the impeachment of Supreme Court justices. Now, that's not going to get up. However, it's out there. And the other question I've been asked by a lot of people is, why isn't Biden expanding the numbers on the Supreme Court? Very good question. So let's have a look. Biden and the Supreme Court, the relationship of Biden and the Supreme Court. Oh, I think he's got a longer term plan. Like now, even as the President of the United States, he's out in the cold because so many of the major institutions have been compromised. Right, so my own feeling was, oh, he's just conservative by nature. He's an elderly gentleman who is stuck in another era. And I don't think so. I think he's actually got a major plan. He's waiting for the ship to come in. Now, I'm sure he understands this is not a done deal with the midterms by anything. But if the midterms go well, blessed be, if the midterms go well, that's when he's going to act, because I think he realizes now, with the surprise news, there'd be no point now because they wouldn't be successful in their nominations. Now, normally this is just surprise news and that's that, but I'm going to use Hogarth's interpretation here of stinky fish in the cup. And his intention and outcome and what he lives for is the beautiful angel of temperance, right? So he's looking across, looking for his ship. Everything rests on these midterms. As Sinclair Lewis said, I don't even know when he lived, but I think he was famous for saying, when fascism comes to America, it'll be holding a Bible and draped in a flag, right? And that's what is happening. You know, this SCOTUS has to be upended. The whole court has to be upended. And so if the Dems get House and Senate, they can and must really go hard at these institutions, the FBI, the DOJ, and really clean out these institutions. Right. Now, I wanted to say to you too several things about this, because I think it's really important that this community supports each other, right? And I know you're in pain, but it's really essential. And I put this in comments last week for people. Turn the pain into outrage and turn the outrage into action. Right? So important. They've awakened the giant. I think things change in history, and it doesn't matter where you look in history. They change when the zeitgeist changes. So things that look impossible suddenly happen. So the peasants in Russia were in a feudal system for 1,000 years, but then November 17, they rose up. It was the same with the French Revolution. It was the same with the first American Revolution. These things change after staying the same for so long. They do suddenly change. The Berlin Wall was insurmountable. And then one night it was down. And this is how we've got to think about the midterms and encouraging people. Now, I'm going to put up 3 clips for you. I'm going to put them in the comments and I'm going to pin it to the comments. I've tested all the links. They work for me. If they don't, the headings are there that you can just put into YouTube and you'll get them. But I'll tell you what they are because I've chosen them for a reason. There's one called You've Been Lied To. So it's by a guy who's been conservative all his life, couldn't be more conservative, but he's seen the light. Okay, and so he's talking to young conservatives and he describes what I keep carping on about. The American narrative is keeping people blind and stilted and buried alive under the myth of a rugged individualism, rich country, level playing field, everything's all right. No, it is not all right. In 8 minutes, he does a really good job of dismantling the conservative stuff, right? So he's good. The second, you may have already seen it. She's a young graduate from Texas. And she talks about her reaction as a young woman in Texas to the SCOTUS decision. It's riveting. I don't want to spoil it by taking her punchline, so I hope you watch it. And then after that, Betty Bowers. Now, Betty Bowers is a comedian and her thing is The Best Christian in America. And it's satire. And so it's a bit of light relief after the others, but at the same time, really cutting through. And it's called whatever it's called, Life is Precious Until It Isn't, you know. Yeah. And she does a very clever job at that, you know. So, beloveds, kudos to you all for surviving to this point. Keep the energy up. Rest, engage. Rest, engage. And if you're active in these things, you feel much better than just being swamped by another wave of hideousness, you know. So this is a time, as we say in Australia, go hard or go home. It's a time to step up and do whatever you can in your radius, right? You can do this. You can do this. How much do I love you? This much. My arms aren't long enough. Take care. Bye.